we're driving the refreshed Porsche Cayman, the 718. Unfortunately, it's in racing yellow. Yes, yellow. The colour of choice for New York cab drivers, school bus drivers, the blind. Yes. How often do blind people get tricked into buying yellow cars? And of course, cars that beat the circuit record on the Nürburgring. Maybe yellow does make a car go faster. But of course, what we want to start on is the dead goat in the room, the new engine. Controversial, I'd say. And as always, Porsche likes to give, but they also like to take away. And in this case, 2 cylinders seem to have dropped off onto the road and they've added a turbocharger. And I have to admit, when I first picked this car up from the dealership, and as I was rolling out of the dealership, I thought to myself, oh my God, this thing sounds exactly like a WRX. Which I guess is no surprise. It's a Boxster 4 turbo, just like a WRX. Is it terrible? No, it's not terrible, but for sure, I like the old engine more. And fortunately, a friend of mine, Tim, has brought his previous generation over today. It's only a year old as well, and it's in the same configuration, same questionable color. So we'll compare the sounds between the two while we're here. I also have my friend Dimitri, he's brought over the base Cayman, so we can have a look at that as well. The reality, of course, with this engine is that it's fuel savings for Porsche to meet standards, emission standards and so forth. And I think people will get used to it over time. Anytime there's a change to a Porsche engine, people scream and yell and the world is coming to an end. And there's no question that this engine doesn't sound as good as the old one, but it gives you a bunch of extra torque and it makes it an easier car to drive overall. I mean, it really leaps away now. It really feels like my 911 in so many ways. So let's compare these engine sounds. First this car, and this car's got the sports exhaust, which is on, so it's trying its best. Oh my God, that engine just sounds so much better and it delivers power completely differently. No one's ever going to vote for the 4-cylinder being the better engine. It does have some benefits, obviously. It has a lot more low down torque, so it is an easier car to drive and feels more powerful. This car feels substantially more powerful than the 981, no question about it. So a lot of people will love that as well. And here's the thing about the Cayman Boxster. And shh, don't tell those idiots that have bought 911s. But arguably, the Cayman Boxster is the very best sports car that Porsche makes. These are beautifully engineered, small, light, well-balanced sports cars. There really isn't a lot they can do to improve these cars. That's how good they are. And it's always made me wonder why the Cayman Boxster doesn't sell more, particularly here in the US. They sell about 5,000 between the two models each year. And when you compare that to other models within the Porsche range, that is tiny. It's a low volume car in a lot of ways. The 911 often sells more than 10,000 a year. The Macan sells over 15,000 a year. So yeah, the Porsche Boxster Cayman has never been a big seller. And I think part of that has been an image problem, because there is nothing wrong with these cars. They are magnificent in every way. And the image problem has always been, I think, that people see them as, you know, the poor man's 911, which is simply not the case. And I think the introduction of the GT4, the Cayman GT4, has done a lot to improve that image. You know, people now see it as a sports car in its own right. So I hope that they will start selling more of these, because anyone that overlooks the Boxster Cayman as a sports car are missing out. They're missing out. This is such a magnificent vehicle. So back to comparing with the 981. Obviously the biggest changes aside from that engine have been to the styling on the outside, both front and rear. Big changes to the styling, which I personally think are great. I think it's such a beautiful looking car now, even in this color. And on the inside, there's also been changes. They got rid of those ugly vents. They pushed the sport chrono clock back to where it should be. And of course, they put the new steering wheel, the much better steering wheel in these cars as well. So big improvements everywhere. So if you discount the engine, otherwise, this car is a big leap forward, styling-wise for Porsche. Handling, it's much the same. Tim's car, the 981, has got the lowered suspension, so it's a harsh ride, whereas this one doesn't. This one's just got the sports exhaust, and it's a really nice, flat, comfortable ride. I strongly recommend not getting that lowered suspension if you want a more comfortable ride in your Cayman Boxster. But I'm not going to talk about all the options in this video. What is interesting about options in the Cayman Boxster is that they are far cheaper than in other cars in the Porsche range, particularly the 911s. For the exact same option in the 911, you often pay 20 to 35% more. So the Boxster can be a real bargain even if you're putting a whole lot of options on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do every single option video later this week and take you through all the options you can get with the Cayman Boxster and my thoughts on those, as opposed to integrating it into this video. The only time the Cayman Boxster isn't a bit of a bargain is that they nickel and dime you on a couple of things. For example, you have to pay for the navigation and you have to pay for dual climate. It's only $700 and something, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, they do nickel and dime you, but you make it back in the savings on the options overall. So what about the base Boxster and the base Cayman as opposed to the S? So what's interesting here is in the 911, the S models cost about $14,000 more, and you get a lot of engineering for that money. That is, you get a lot of options added that are all part of improving the performance of the car. Obviously, you get the more powerful engine, you get the electronic dampening, the PASM. Most importantly, you get the Porsche torque vectoring rear diff, which makes a big difference in bad weather, wet roads, that type of thing, which really I think should be standard on all Porsche vehicles. You get the different exhaust, the bigger wheels, and of course the better brakes. So there's a lot of engineering that goes into that $14,000. So it makes getting the S in the 911s well worthwhile. Here in the Cayman and the Boxsters, you pay $12,400 for the S model, and you don't get a lot of engineering. Sure, you get the 2.5 litre engine, the bigger engine, 50 horsepower more, and you get the slightly better brakes on the front, but otherwise it's all cosmetic changes. The different exhaust, the bigger brakes, slightly different pedals, and of course the silly grey tach meter here, which you should always option out because it's so hard to see. Not a lot of value in getting the S. And as for the performance, luckily today my friend Dimitri brought along his base model Cayman for me to drive, and I can tell you that the measly 29 pound-feet of torque between the 2-litre engine and the 2.5-litre engine is not that noticeable, only in the top end. If you're struggling to stretch to buy the S, the extra $12,000, don't sweat it. The base model Cayman and the base model Boxster are just as much fun as the S models. You're really not missing out on a lot. What I'd also say about Dimitri's car is that it happens to be the stripper model. That is the true $56,000 Porsche sports car. He has no options in it, and it is still magnificent to drive. You just don't need options in these cars to make them great. So it's true, you can get a magnificent Porsche sports car brand new for $56,000. The other thing that I say about the 2-litre base engine is that the extra torque from the turbochargers has made it a lot more drivable. Sure, we don't like the sound so much, but in the past, the base engine, you had to work the gears a lot to get the performance out of it, and it wasn't so drivable day to day. The new engine has plenty of torque down low, and so it's an easier car to drive for everybody. So yes, I actually struggled to think of any negatives about this car. There are so many positives. The one negative that I will give, apart from the sound of the engine, is the matching of the PDK to the engine in this car. It might need a little bit of tweaking. What I'm talking about is when you get to go really slowly, especially if you're in standard mode, not sport mode, if you're crawling along sort of 5 to 10 miles an hour and you go to put the power on, the engine really bogs down. particularly if you get below 5 miles an hour. And part of that is it likes to start in second gear for some reason. And because the engine's off boost, it really bogs down. And sometimes it will jump down to first gear, which kind of jerks you into first gear. And other times it waits for the engine to get onto boost and then away it goes. It's just, I don't know, that just seems to be a miss on Porsche's part. I'll demonstrate one more time. I'll slow right down here. Here I am, 7 miles an hour, and I put my foot, and then it jumps down, you see? But if I put my foot just lightly on the gas, it bogs down. And I noticed it time and time again. Here we go. 10 miles an hour, put my foot on the gas, away it goes. Just a little tuning thing. You can solve it by putting it in sport mode, so it'll always drop to first gear as soon as you get down to a low enough speed. Otherwise, the Porsche Cayman is definitely my favorite sports car in this price range. Obviously, I'm a bit of a Porsche fanboy, so that's no surprise. So keep an eye out for that video later in the week about all the options if you're interested in buying one. And I'll end this video on saying, as I have before, if you're buying a Porsche car and you're struggling to get the discount that you want from your dealer because there are a lack of choices in dealers, or your dealer's just being an ass, do email me, because I've had a few viewers come through my dealer lately, and they've given them a decent discount and shipped the car directly to them, and that's worked beautifully. So if I can help you guys get a better discount on your car, I'm more than happy to. Anyway, Albert and I will see you guys in the next video later this week, and we thank you as always for your support on my channel and for watching. Bye then.
Thank you.